Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on the time that you're listening. Welcome to another episode of Blank Canvas, where we discuss different facets of creativity and the processes that encompass what makes a creative a creative. We are a special bunch, I'd say. And today with me, I have a very special guest, Tashan. Tashan Hendricks. Multifaceted creative, writer, producer, TV broadcaster, host, strategist. She's done a great deal of work in the creative industry here in Jamaica. And we're here to talk about the worker bee and how that is quote unquote dubbed as a freelancer, and what does a freelancer do, the work that freelancers do that are behind the scenes, that in some way, shape or form they may or may not get credit for it. They just leave with the satisfaction of knowing that they contributed to something greater than themselves. So today we speak to Tashan about the worker bee and all the buzzing things that she's been a part of. Hi, Tashan.
Hi, Yohan. Thanks for that introduction.
Definitely. It wasn't a stretch, was it? No. I think I even left off some things.
Yeah, but worker bee.
Yeah. What I want to start the conversation with is, as a multifaceted freelancer, how do you see or how do you feel that the freelancer culture is respected within the creative industry? Freelancers make most of the things happen, believe it or not, folks. Freelancers are called upon for projects multiple times daily. They work behind the scenes tirelessly on a lot of projects, whether it be an event, whether it be a campaign, whether it be design, artwork, producing, whatever it is. They are the nucleus behind a lot of the executions. What does it mean for you to be a freelancer? And what are some of the benefits that you've had in your career over the number of years as being a freelancer?
So I've always been a freelancer. I've been freelancing since I was 18, 19. The first thing I got paid to do was to write. So I don't know anything outside of being a freelancer, except for I had a stint at an ad agency. And even in how I worked in that agency, I worked kind of like a freelancer. I took that experience with me.
Okay.
So I was not the typical employee who would come in and kind of not know what to do and when to do it or need a directive. I really owned my desk. I owned my processes. In fact, I became a creative director in that agency. And a lot of the ways that people work now there were influenced by how I work.
Right.
So as a freelancer, you really do have the ability to create your way of work, to really own your process, to influence how other people work, and to teach people how to treat you.
Right.
A lot of that only comes with being outside of a job or being outside of an agency if it is in the advertising space. As musicians too, like I see it a lot with musicians because they're the ultimate freelancers, you know. A musician don't go to a 9-to-5 ever. It rarely happens. But musicians will tell you that one of their key things about being freelancers is that they get complete control of their time. They get to create when they want to create, and they get to create when it is flowing. As creatives in the advertising space or in the marketing space, you just have to create. Like, you just need to create when the brief comes. But if you're a purist, like, being a freelancer is the best way.
And for those who may not know what the term means, being a purist is pure creator. Like, that is...
Yeah, so if let's say you're a writer, then you are a writer and you live and breathe to write.
To write, gotcha.
And, yeah.
So you mentioned about the process and you mentioned about owning the process. And in the agency space where I worked with Point Global, a big statement that resonated through the agency to project managers, whoever it is be the CEO of your own desk and or be the CEO of your own work. So actually owning that directly throughout, like there's nobody else but you that will make this happen. Well, for me, I found that that's a great narrative, but it sometimes doesn't really apply itself when you're not necessarily in a mood to create or in a mood to produce or in a mood to write or in a mood to paint, draw, whatever it is. So there are challenges that I have faced with that. Is that something that freelancers struggle with as well in terms of managing your time, managing the creation, managing the process, managing the work itself?
I mean, yes, definitely. I can't speak for all freelancers, but from my experience, no matter where you are, what industry or what area of the industry you're in, so you will struggle with blockages because it is a creative process. No matter which area you're in, you're creating something, you're bringing forth something. And sometimes that will take far longer than you think.
Right.
And sometimes it will just come like this.
Right.
So it's not that you never have control over the process, it's that you have to
Appreciate the different forms that it comes in. Okay.
Yes, but also with experience, you as a creative or as a freelancer, you get to understand how you work. And it is very important to understand how you work and to honor that. Because what I find is I'll get a brief and immediately I know what I'm gonna do. I'll get another brief and I'll say, wow, there's a disconnect here and so it's not flowing. I know immediately that I need to step back from that brief. I need to reframe that problem. I need to probably reach out to the client and ask a couple more questions. I need to talk to the consumer. There are different ways to get there faster. But you have to understand how you work. But it will always happen. You won't always consistently have the same turnaround time. The goal though is to get it down to a science. I mean, if you are about doing this and about making money from this, then you have to get it down to a science.
Yeah, that's critical. Well, by the way, listeners, brief, not hints. The actual it's actually a document that clients would normally send to persons who are going to be the ones to execute the job. All right, so we're giving you a little jargon lesson here as well.
Yeah, sure. I'll keep it.
No, man, that's fine. That's fine. You know, we're all here to educate as well. Being in the freelance space, though, the objective is to be a part of a solution. Whether you're working on a team or whether you're working by yourself, the objective is to be a part of a solution. There's a creative problem, or there's a problem in an industry that needs a solution that a creative can help to solve. And I've been reading and listening, and there's a key comment that I think it was Chase Jarvis who said it, that there is almost no problem that creativity isn't the solution for. Like, irrespective of the industry, whatever it is that we're doing, applying creativity to finding a solution almost guarantees you that you find a new way to actually get over this hurdle. So being solution oriented, how do you attack that process? Like, how do you look at the problem that you're given in order to find the necessary solution in order to get this job done?
So there are a couple of things that you said that I kind of want to dissect that. So if you are committed to being a freelancer, if you are committed to being a creative, then finding solutions should be what you're about. Yeah? That's not always the case. And that is what differentiates the people who constantly get work from the people who rarely get work.
Right.
Some people are just working, and that's fine. If that's what you're about, that's what you're about. But if you are solutions oriented and what you want to bring to the world, what you want to bring to the space are solutions for various problems that people are facing, whether you are thinking consumer facing or corporate facing, meaning that you want to, and you're trying to fix something that a consumer or a user of the product faces, or you're trying to fix something for a marketer or a brand manager. No matter who your target is, once you're trying to bring a solution to the fore, then you approach the job very differently. So I just wanted to clear that up. The second thing that you said that I wanted to look at was creativity being at the core of solutions. Or it can solve any problem.
Right.
The truth is, only in this marketing advertising space do we make a creative the person who writes or the graphics or the motionography. Creativity is in everybody.
True.
Like everybody's a creative. Like the nerdiest, like bookworm
Everybody's
is a
a
creative.
Say it again. Everybody.
God made us all creative.
True.
And so for some of us, we have chosen to embrace creativity as our way of life.
Right.
And so in the creative space or in the advertising space, they call us creatives. But that does not mean that we are the only form of creative people ever. So once you have embraced creativity, you must embrace the what comes with it. You must be solutions oriented.
Yeah.
And so let's look at how you solve problems using creativity now. Personally, when I get a job, when I'm approached with a problem, I look at what the problem is. And so what I find, I've been in so many rooms where an agency says to the client or says to a marketing company or a marketer or a brand manager, they say, okay, tell me the problem. And the brand manager say, well, this is the problem, we're not moving the goods. And they see the problem as something completely different from what the consumer sees the problem as. So it is important to look at the problem, to listen, to understand, not just to your client, but to the consumer, because they're the ones that are going to use the product. So it's all about reframing that problem, ensuring that you're looking at it from the right angle.
Right.
Beyond that, it is doing your research, like ensuring that you understand the space that the product is going to play in, ensuring that you understand the user, like how they use the product, how they see the product, how they view it, how they find it. Are they even looking for it? As well as how the product is being positioned. Sometimes the keeper of the brand doesn't really understand the brand.
True.
And so
True.
as a problem solver, you have to look at all of those facets in coming up with your solution. When you create that solution, you have to ensure that that solution is functional. I find way too many times, especially here, we have these ads and we have these extravagant campaigns that are great ideas.
Of course. And they look great as well.
They look great. You get the best director, it look awesome. But it's not functional.
Right.
Like it doesn't connect.
Right.
It is not for the person that you intended.
Right.
Because you're in a silo creating. And so it is important as well for me to be a part of the entire process. So I am a creative who, depending on the room I'm in, I'm a producer, or I'm a creative consultant, or I'm a brand strategist, or I'm a executor. It depends on where you are in the process, and it is important to have that agility.
Right.
If it is that you want to create something bigger.
Right.
So what I find is, if you're not a part of it from the concept, from framing the problem, you jump on at the end and you're just creating something. Sometimes it really doesn't connect.
Right, because you haven't been integral to the process. You haven't actually took the time to get the necessary insights, the critical insights that would give you leverage in creating this solution. That would be, even if not entirely correct, at least skewed to most of it being intended for the audience that it's supposed to be.
Yeah. So what you find too is, especially in our agencies, those functions are segmented. So something comes in and it goes to research, but then the creative doesn't have a say in how the research is executed.
Done. Right.
And then it comes over and the creative comes up with a concept. And then they pass it on to a writer. And the copywriter writes something. And then they send it down to a graphic designer. And then the graphic designer designs something and it's immaculate. And then somebody animate that design. And, and it's just like everybody's creating great work.
Yeah.
But
nothing fits the puzzle.
Exactly.
All pieces, but nothing actually creates the puzzle that we're looking for.
So what I find is the advantage of being a freelancer is that you get to say, okay, I want to own this project and I want to be a part of it. And for me, that is very important because I am not just a creative. Like, I'm very left and right brain.
Right.
So I want to see the data and I want to see how you broke down the data and I want to see who you spoke to and what they were doing when you spoke to them.
Right.
So if it's a political campaign, don't come tell me about all the things that JLP is good at or has failed at when you only spoke to PNP people,
right.
or all the things that PNP was good at or failed at when you only spoke to JLP people.
Right.
So it's like, who did you talk to? Is this objective data? And then from that, I can say, okay, these insights are valid. And because these insights are valid, then we can go into creating something for this consumer.
Right.
And so it's very important to be a part of the process.
From the get-go.
From the get-go.
I have something that I want to touch on now, which as old folks would I say, might have mashed some people can. Working in the ad space as well prior and being a part of the creative community and seeing and doing work and just being in the space. I have a major problem with the fact that freelancers being a part of almost every nook and cranny of things that are produced locally, and whether it serves only the local market or it extends beyond and it goes regionally or internationally, they don't get the credit for the work that they do. And it's beyond a cry out now. It's a little bit more than frustrating also to know that you put your effort, you put your work, you put your thought, you put late nights, you put everything into putting this work, this body of work together that goes out and it gets recognized, and to some extent it may even get accolades. But you, the creator, the engine that was this driving force behind this process, behind this product that you now see, you have to sit down in one corner and just look and say, oh, so me to do that. But the truth is, if nobody actually knows that you were the one that did it, and 90% of the time is only a little bit of your friend them know, say actually you do it, And I don't know whole heap of people. Yeah, it's sad, man. I don't know whole heap of people. And I think that on that end, there needs to be some form of revision within the mindset of the freelancer going into doing work for, whether you're doing it for another freelancer, whether you're doing it for a corporate brand, whether you're doing it for a conglomerate, multinational, whatever it is. If you are contracted to do something there, I'm hoping that this probably sparks some new level of conversations that we need to have. But I'm hoping that there is a new way of doing that in terms of what do I need to do as a freelancer to ensure that my creative stamp is not tarnished. My value, my brand, what I bring to the table is not dismissed when it goes into a separate room, into a separate meeting, and it is presented as something that someone came up with. Who is the someone? Like, I have a name, you know? I don't know. This may not be something that you can answer, Tash, but I mean, what's your view on something like that?
So, I've actually been in that seat before. And in fact, I've been in that seat where I didn't even realize that there was credit to get. You know, it's like you're just so busy moving from project to project that you don't stop to realize that there are accolades over there being collected.
Right.
What I will say though is that this space is a very ungrateful one. And I've made peace with that a long time ago. A very long time ago. And I guess that's the creative in me. You know, like as creatives, we sometimes are just so eager to create things and to do the work and to just see it come to life.
Right.
And so sometimes we really don't get too caught up in what people have to say about it because we're just so proud that we've gotten it out. But it is a conversation that we need to have. It's a conversation I've had with my friends who are IP lawyers. So I'm very interested in intellectual property. My career actually started out in music. And so I was a music manager. I managed Jamaican. I've managed so many artists. I've been a part of management teams for Marcia Griffiths, Bob Andy, the late Bob Andy, may his soul rest in peace, and just a host of other talents. And so intellectual property is an important thing to me.
Right.
And so one of the problems that I personally have worked on, I've personally dealt with for other creatives, is that it's ensuring that you're paid for your intellectual property.
Right.
Now, that being said, what I realize the space is, or the reality is here in Jamaica, is that in the advertising space, which is primarily what we're talking about, intellectual property is not something very important.
Right.
Maybe this Market Me scandal will bring it to the fore, but we don't pay for intellectual property. A creative can come up with the most brilliant thing, and they're not acknowledged for it.
Take it and gone.
There are no royalties. There are no one-time payments. There's nothing. Beyond that is the fact that most agencies haven't even begun to think about intellectual property on that level. I remember when I started working with an agency 5 years ago, I brought that to the owner and I said, hey, like, this is a creative space, and so I am writing what I think is brilliant. And I want to know, does the company have copyright? Is there a copyright contract?
Right.
Is there something that I need to sign?
Right.
And they didn't see copyright as something. In fact, embarrassingly, there were people who asked me, why am I saying copyright and not copywriting? Because they didn't make the distinction between intellectual property copyright and the process of writing copy.
Right.
And so there has to be some education around that. I think first and foremost, people just don't know.
Right.
And then what I find too is that a lot of the contracts that agencies offer people say that anything you create is theirs. But then the agency, they're not doing anything with the creation either.
Right.
So nobody is earning from it.
But also the contract that the agency has with the company or the client.
The brand,
anything that they create for the client is theirs also. So where does that leave?
So no one in the creative process is benefiting except the brand.
Right.
And so that's something that we have to look at. It's something that we have to look at. In terms of getting credit, though, just the acknowledgement of the creative or of the freelancer, the agreements don't allow for that. Because once you're doing work for somebody, in most cases, the standard agreements don't allow for that.
Yeah.
Once I say I'm doing work for you and Inc., it is you and Inc.'s work.
Property.
And you and Inc. can present it however they want to. They can shred it, they can add to it, they can do whatever they want, and it's you and Inc. The fact is that I have agreed to do work for hire. And that is very different from work that I can get credit for. Once I sign that, I have given you rights to everything. And so what we have is a lot of work for hire contracts.
Right.
We don't have contracts that are favorable to copyright and to the creator.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's not a conveyor belt, it's not a factory setting, whereas you have 1,000 people working on one thing and then the product remains the brand. So the guys who work in parts, the guys who work in servicing, the guys who work in, everybody puts the BMW together and push it out, and then you just know, so your space was on the conveyor line right here. You were number 14. Tomorrow morning you come back, you go back to number 14 space, and you keep it going. That's not the space that we're in. It takes time, it takes effort, and I think that people don't give enough credit to the thought processes that goes into creating things. I think people look at creatives as disposable, that, oh, I can just call you when I need you, and you should just be a snap of a finger ready to come and create something wonderful for me to go and present. And I think we need to own what we do and respect the work that we do and respect it enough to demand a higher standard from those who are seeking our services. Don't just call me in the middle of the night and expect, say, tomorrow morning I get something. And we need to stop giving promises like that too. Yeah. Right?
That's a whole different part, yeah. One at a time.
We definitely need to understand that there has to be a structure. We need to structure our work ourselves. We need to structure our desk. We need to structure our process. And we need to understand that when we serve persons, we're serving them with these things that are supporting the way that we do our work. Yeah. And it can't just be, not because we name Freelancer means it's a free for all. Yeah. Right? We should be looking at taking the process a little bit more serious, but this would have probably be like a five-part conversation.
I mean, and the truth is though that there is a system set up, and we've described that system. It's not favorable to the freelancer or to the creator. However, you're right. Like, most people know that if you want it in 5 minutes, I can do it in 5 minutes now. But am I going to do it in 5 minutes? I probably won't. Right. So don't call me. Right. And I'm not just being arrogant. It's just not the kind of work that I want to do. Right. The kind of work that I want to do has to be impactful. In fact, the work that I've done allows people to call me to say, hey, are you do that ad there? Come and know say you do that ad there. Right. You know, it's like I'm trying to build a brand. Right. Exactly. Right. I'm not trying to just collect 100 grand off of this today and collect another 100 grand. Right. That's not me. Right. That's not the kind of brand that I'm building. But if that's the kind of brand somebody wants to build, there's a space for that. Yeah. So it really comes down to your values, and there's no way we're going to get to the point where everybody say no to a work that say you have 2 hours. Right. It come in and you have 2 hours. There's no reality in which everybody's going to say no to that.
No, and that's understandable. What I hope to see is where that isn't the standard and that isn't the expectancy, because it has been delivered so many times and you know that this person can probably get it done. Yeah. Then it now becomes what would I hear as liberty taking as well. So we hope that the conversations here that we're having can
Well,
probably spark some other initiative around that.
yeah, I really do hope so, because otherwise what I see happening is people being burnt out, and then a new cohort comes in and they get burnt out, and a
Right.
new cohort comes in
Right.
and they get burnt out.
Right.
And it makes advertising what people say it is.
Right.
Soulless.
Right.
And it really doesn't have to be.
It doesn't.
doesn't have to be that.
So with the not new normal, I hate that term, but in terms of what consumers are now going to be forced to digest is a lot more mainstream commercials coming in digitally. There is going to be for me, I foresee there's going to be heavier demands on creatives to churn out more work. We're getting more opportunities to get in the face of consumers and or customers to try and make their brands relevant. And what I am hoping is that what we start to do is to look at the fact that, look, there has to be value that is added to every single piece of creation that we do and every single piece of work that we put out for consumers. Because, as I said, the soulless, just throw it in your face to collect some money, the transactional nature of it, we work for a higher purpose. And the higher purpose is to have an impact, to actually make a change with someone in somebody's life. Hopefully someone can see a product differently through our eyes, how we have created it, how we have brought it to life. What's your take on what will probably happen over the next 12 to 18 months? I mean, that's a long stretch. I mean, given the fact that things are turning and ever so more dynamic now, but where do you see the new digital space taking us, and how does that affect the work of the freelancer?
So firstly, I really hate that word churning.
Yeah.
Like churning, it really grinds my gears. But unfortunately, that word really aptly describes what most people face. Or with the new normal, as you call it, creatives are being forced to create in very different ways. And so work from home is the new norm. So whereas before, even for me, working from home was my dream. Like, it like every day I get up to work at home, I'm just like, yes.
Yeah, man, I'll do this.
This is what I want to do. And mind you, this has always been my life. Because even when I was working full time for an agency, I still worked from home. So it was a dream. But when you're being forced to work from home, it's like a whole different kind of suppression.
Yeah.
And so what I find is you have to find ways to spark that creativity and to keep it alive. That's something that we really haven't been talking about, but in our little groups, I find creatives are talking about it.
Yeah.
They're talking about how it is creating in COVID. Because you don't get to see each other.
Right.
A very important part of the creative process is brainstorming.
Yeah.
It's important to have conversations, to have this dialogue around the problem, to reframe it, to see how Yuan sees this problem, how Tashan sees this problem, how John sees this problem, and to see how they interact with the brands.
Right.
I find that the way that we have been operating in COVID does not lend to that.
Yeah.
And so, yes, we're now beginning to use the different technologies to connect, but we have to be mindful that creatives like to see outdoors. There are different types of creatives, clearly.
And there are different forms of inspiration as well.
Exactly. And so, as the creatives, we have the responsibility to keep ourselves energized, keep ourselves inspired, and to really ensure that we're creating quality, like good quality work. because we don't want, like, it should not be churn.
Right.
It should not be churn for churn's sake.
Right.
Or because it's no digital content that people are consuming more of, then we can drop the standard and it can just be something, and it, you know, like, we can just put out a thing.
Right.
No, we have to keep it up. Like, we have to keep the bar up.
As a matter of fact, we should probably be trying to improve.
To improve. Like, this is a great time to improve. It's a great time to stretch yourselves. In fact, it's funny. I have been ridiculously busy during COVID. Like, it's so funny. I recently left an agency. I recently left the agency. And so when I was leaving, people said, but it's COVID, like, why are you leaving? No, it's not the time to leave. You need this money. And I'm like, no, actually, no. Like, the moment I left, I had like 3 projects. And so I've done political work. I've done so many different types of creative that has stretched me and has, like, allowed me to see beyond where I was. And it allows me to see how other types of consumers consume information, how they consume the data that we put out, and what the communication means to them. And so it's important to use this time to challenge ourselves and to expand the way that we create and to expand the way that we reach people. And I think it's very important that we spend some time doing that, even not just as freelancers, but even creatives who work within an agency. Even musicians, like... Musicians, painters, the way that you do a music video will change. The way that you do an art class will change. The way that... So it's really taking a step back to say, okay, what is my craft? How does my craft serve the consumer? You know, what is the impact it has? And then to look at how you can ensure that you're maximizing this time. It's a really good time to create, you know. It really isn't that bad for us.
I don't think it's bad. I think it's just the process of adapting. I think that's something that we need to assess and get on track with very quickly, and being able to pivot.
That agility is very important. It's important as a creative to always be able to pivot. And if you're not able to do that, you really kind of get trapped in a box and you can't really create in a vacuum. Like that dishonors the whole idea of creating.
Of creation in the first place. Yeah. Tashan, this has been a really buzzworthy conversation. Thank you so much for joining. I do hope that for all the other projects that you will embark on, you'll leave your mark, and we will see more cool stuff coming from you, even if we don't know it's you. But for those who know your work, definitely it will show right through. And let this be some form of encouragement to creatives, freelancers, whatever it is that you're doing. Don't despair at the fact that the process may not be how exactly you want it to be right now. But if you're actually staying true to what it is that you know, that's your core value, that's your system, that's your process, and you are committed to getting to a new space in your creative journey, then I think the chips will fall into place. So
definitely.
Yeah.
And I just want to say to freelancers, creatives like me, is that in almost every project you have an opportunity to own it. You know, you have an opportunity to create something unique and to create something that has the impact that you're hoping for. It's important as creatives to sometimes just step back from the request and to look at it through different lens, and then really just create from that space. There's always an opportunity to create amazing work. Yeah.
Thank you again, Tashan.
Thank you for having me.
All the best. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in to another episode of Blank Canvas. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, share, tell a friend, And thank you for tuning in, and thank you for being a part of this process and this journey with us as we discuss the multiple disciplines of creativity and what makes a creative and different facets in our space. Big up.